Hey, what's up? It's the Fit Mess Podcast. I'm Jeremy. No Zach today. Here we talk about all kinds of stuff regarding our depression, our anxiety, our mental health struggles, our life struggles, our just getting through the day-to-day struggles, and all the fucked up, weird things we do to try to manage them, and the normal everyday things we do to try to manage them. Today, we're talking with Ben Nevares. He is the host of the Ben Thinking podcast. We're going to talk to him in a minute. He's on a wellness journey of his own, a sobriety journey of his own, recovering from a bit of addiction, I think it's safe to say. And he is a former Team USA powerlifter. So the dude knows a thing or two about getting through some heavy shit, literally and figuratively. And he helps other folks with their journeys to get a little better as well. So we're going to talk to him about really a lot of things. We're going to talk to him about crazy shit like heat shock proteins, which is a term I'd never even heard of before this conversation, and how they're beneficial to your health and wellness goals. But we're also going to talk about the things we talk about on this show, the tiny little things you need to do every single day to get better and better toward whatever kind of a life it is you're actually trying to live, instead of this fucked up mess of a one you find yourself in now. And this is timely. I'm home now. I just got back from my weekly cold plunge with my cold plunging group. We go every Sunday here in the lake nearby where I live. Cold as shit, 7.1 degrees Fahrenheit. So, 7.1 degrees Celsius, not Fahrenheit. In Fahrenheit, that's really fucking cold for those of you in the U.S. But in that lake today with the group, I found myself asked the question that I get asked a lot, because I tend to be one of the first ones in. I tend to be one of the first ones to plunge all the way in and swim around no matter how cold the water is. And many of my friends there will say, how do you do this? And then they're reminded, oh yeah, you've been doing this a long time. And so, we spent about 20 minutes in this really, really cold water, which, if you've never done that before and you stick your little pinky toe in the water for the first time, holy shit, it's cold. You're not going in there. That's fucking nuts. Why would you do something like that? Are you an idiot? Well, it turns out as you build up and get used to it, it's actually really good for you and feels really good. But they're baffled frequently about my ability to move around so freely in the water. And I'm not trying to brag about this. This is not something to brag about. But it's the lesson here that they, I think, take from seeing me do that, and the lesson I'm reminded of when I have these conversations with them is that years ago, when I first started doing this, I could not do this. It took step by step, day by day, the little efforts to get a little bit better at it, spending 20 seconds in a cold shower, 30 seconds in a cold shower, a minute, then going in up to my knees in a local lake where it wasn't quite as cold as it is now, to eventually, attending an online Wim Hof retreat to learn from the master himself, to having my kids dump shovels of snow on me in the front yard to build up the tolerance and the ability to stay in the water for a really long time to receive the maximum benefit from it that I do. All that to say, it started with those little steps in the beginning that build up over time and accumulate to the point where 20 minutes went by, and today we stayed in for 21 accidentally because nobody was really keeping time, and it just felt really good. So it's just, it just proves the point over and over again that those little steps we take to build up the endurance and the ability to do these hard things, it's worth that little effort every day that you don't necessarily see the results of every day. It's the 6 months later, it's the year later when you look back and go, man, that's where I started. Look how far I've come. I'm in such a better place. The same is true for my guest. His name is Ben Nevares. He is the host of the Ben Thinking podcast. He has taken a lot of small steps to improve his life as well. A lot of them started from a place of just trying to find himself, trying to find a little peace between his ears. And he found that in the gym. And that led to competing with Team USA, being a power lifter. Dude can lift some heavy shit. He is a strong dude. So I'm excited to share his journey with you, because it's another reminder for those of us that need them over and over again, that you just have to put in the work. You got to do the reps. You got to do the little things every day to get to where you're trying to go, because it won't happen overnight. You're not going to just strike gold all of a sudden. It's going to be digging and digging until one day you break through and find that gold. And along the way, the journey becomes about becoming that person in your mind before you achieve the goal, deciding I am the kind of person who, and doing the kinds of things that person would do to become who they are. And once you make that identity shift in your mind, once you decide that's the kind of person you want to be, it's so much easier to become them, because you see the path, you see the kinds of things they would do and you just do them. And then again, you look back a few months later, a couple of years later, and realize I actually became that person. So that's what's coming up today, along with some clear steps for those of you that are struggling with whether it's addiction or mental health, wherever you are in your transformation. We're going to help you get there step by step with this conversation. So here now, my conversation with the host of the Ben Thinking podcast, Ben Nevares. So tell me a little bit about how you got to where you are.
I have been on a hell of a journey, I would say. It's been a hell of a, 15 years, getting to the point where I'm finally now sober and living a much healthier life than I think I have in the past in some respects, but still at the same time, still on the journey of trying to live a balanced life and like managing the business. And so I initially started my mental health journey and fitness journey really because it was the only place I felt like I could be Ben. I didn't have like my favorite home life in the world all the time. Like, even though like there's definitely worse stuff out there, I had a hard time being at home. And so the place that I felt where I could be the most of Ben was going to be at the gym. And so I was that kid where coaches would come in at like 9 o'clock at night and be like, "Hey, Ben, I need to go home. Like, I need you to leave. Or you know what? Just stay here. It's fine. Leave through the back. I'm going to turn on the alarm." I'm like,
that's why, how old were you when that was going on?
I probably got like probably like 15.
15. Wow. So this is like the commercial gym. This wasn't the gym at school.
This was the gym at school.
Oh, wow. So yeah, so they were definitely like, "Get out of here. I've already put in my 16 hours today."
Exactly. We had a little bit different of a campus in terms of like athletics, where maybe not different. I'm from South Texas, and
sure.
We like 90% of our population is underneath the poverty line. So we all had free food, and like not a lot of people could even get to school. So a lot of our coaches served that role where they would pick up kids to bring them to morning practice.
Wow,
so we'd always
that's amazing.
It was so cool. Like some of the best coaches that changed my life and probably a lot of kids' lives forever.
Yeah.
I started, we would start school at 7 a.m. We had to be there for, not mandatory practice and for football. And then I ended up leaving football and I got really aggressive into just lifting weights because that's just really where my love was. And I would do a workout in the morning, eat, the free breakfast we had, go to school. And then as soon as the day ended, I would find myself in the gym until I was kicked out.
Yeah. You mentioned getting sober. When did that present itself? When was substance abuse a thing for you?
Dude, substance abuse started really early for me.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't really realize it. Like it seems so, I don't know, normal. Like I got my first surgery when I think I was a sophomore in high school, and it was my shoulder. I tore my labrum from football, and which ended up I got a second surgery like 6 months later on my knee. I tore a piece of my ACL and my meniscus, and so I got a medial meniscus. They tore out a piece of it or cut out a piece of it for rehab, and I was given hydrocodone, and it said on the bottle, 2 every 4 hours or whatever it was, and so every 4 hours or whatever the prescription was, I took my pills. And I got to the end of them, and then my mom asked me, "It's like, hey, where the stuff at?" And I was like, "Oh, I finished them." It's like, "What do you mean you finished them?" I just followed the prescription. But realistically, it was like, well, if it says 4 hours, I don't really want to start feeling pain that time. It takes 45 minutes to kick in. Let me go ahead and just like get it a little bit early. So I'd start, I'd take those 2 every 2.5 hours, and then my next surgery came in, and it was automatically into the next batch of pills. Still a kid, had hydrocodone, had them at school. My parents were working. They were like, "Well, take them with you, use them as you need. You're in pain, so, be responsible." And I thought it was being responsible, but damn, are opioids addicting? I mean, there's a real problem there.
Yeah.
And when I finished those, I started, and I've never said this out loud. I've never told my parents this. And so I would go to the medicine cabinet, and I knew we had codeine in there for, cough syrup. We had a lot of it. You use it for a little bit, and then we'd get prescriptions over and over and over again. And so I'd go in there at night and was like, "Man, I'm really having a really hard time to go to sleep." And that's how it started. I was like, I'm just going to go to, I need some help going to sleep. And I know that makes me sleepy, so let me just take that. And then it was like strategic. I'd wait till 11 o'clock. Am I really having a hard time to go to sleep, or am I even really trying to go to sleep?
Right.
Go to the cabinet, take myself a couple swigs, make sure that there was enough that nobody would recognize, and then, do that as often as I could until I realized, okay, this bottle's getting a little bit low. Let me move on to the next bottle. And so it definitely started in high school, and then it just continued to progress. I smoked, started smoking weed. And then after it was weed, then it was like pretty much like the next week, it was anything I can get my hands on. It was wild. Yeah. Not okay.
I know the opioids are crazy. I had a somewhat similar situation where, I'd been drinking for a long time just because everyone does. It's weirder not to drink than it is to drink, right? So I've been doing that a long time. I still don't think I was ever fully addicted, but it was certainly a coping mechanism for, feelings and, reality and all the things. But when I was in a bike crash a few years ago, broken collarbone, lots of pain, and so they gave me Oxy. And I took it for a few days and was like, wow, I need to never be near this because this feels incredible. So intentionally was like, take these away. I'm going to get addicted to these if I keep taking them. And what was interesting is for me, getting off of that after a few days of like that euphoric feeling, I just was like, wow, well, if I can do that, what else can I take away? Because so often we try to add things to our lives to improve them, but sometimes we got to let them go. And so for me, that turned into like, what would life be like without antidepressants? What would life be like without alcohol? What would life be like without? And so I just kind of started stripping things away. And it was so interesting how all these medications, or the way I was using them as medications, were really causing me more harm. And by removing them is when I really started to find peace and started to get really curious about, well, wow, what else can I do to feel even better?
What a positive outlook on the experience.
It is now. Yeah.
Well, like the fact that you could be in the middle of it and still say, this isn't going to be for me. Like I need to not do this is like a testament to some willpower, or at least some self-awareness, because it does feel so good. And it's just like, well, that's what the prescription says.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's not the best thing.
Yeah, but no. So then, yeah, so you're in it, you're taking everything you can find and trying to just, I imagine, numb some pain, numb some things that you were experiencing. What made you decide this isn't for me anymore?
Oh, man, it got real bad. And so I remember sitting in my house. My heart rate was about 180 beats per minute. I was literally lying down, and I'd already been in the hospital in the past for other things. And I was like, I don't know that I'm going to make it. Like, I think that this is the one that did it for me. And what was this worth it for? And why I have all these dreams, and I'm going to go out because of my stupidity? Like, right. What am I doing with myself? Yeah. And if it wasn't for like the cold air outside, then I don't know if I would have been able to make it out. Like I just walked outside, my heart rate was climbing and climbing, more and more nauseous, walked outside, and it just like hit me with this like really cold breeze of air. And my heart rate immediately came down, and I was like, okay, that was it. If there's a God and this is your sign, Ben. Actually listen this time. And so I stopped taking any recreational hard drugs, if you will. And then it stopped for a little while, and then I started to drink. And then I just saw like the life, like I was gaining weight. I was frustrated. I was probably, my emotions were like constantly up and down, very much so like this hard, aggressive, like pendulum, high highs, low lows. And it was hurting the people around me at the end of the day, and hurting me, right? Like not just them, but like internally I was struggling as well, even though I thought I wasn't. But at some point where you're drinking, 4 or 5 things a night just to feel it enough, then like getting the ones that are, the highest ABV, but the least cost, like, hey man, like you're really like pushing some boundaries here again. And so I ended up having to quit alcohol. And so now entirely sober for the last like 8-9 months now.
Nice. Congrats. That's amazing. I don't know that people who don't struggle with it will ever be able to understand how hard it is, particularly those first 2 years. I mean, like I said, I don't think I ever had like a full addiction. I come from a long line of addicts, but I don't think I was ever fully in it. But getting off of it and, even using it as a coping mechanism, the how much of your identity is wrapped up in it. I mean, for me, driving by a brewery, it was like, oh, we should pop in there. That looks like that's a cool thing to go do. And so you go and you have a couple of beers and you drive down the road. That one looks cool too. Let's check that out. Like it just becomes like this lifestyle. And if you are using it because it was a stressful day, let's have a glass of wine or 7, or a couple of beers or whatever it's going to be. When you start having to deal with those feelings and all of the stuff you've probably been running from since you were 9, the horror show that opens up in your head of how much pain you carry becomes very apparent. And it gets harder and harder for a while to just accept it and live with it without the ease of how can I just make this go away quickly. So I know for me, it took probably a solid 2 years before I was like, okay, I can function in the world like a normal person with all of the feelings and pain that come with that experience. Has it been a challenging 8 months? I imagine you have a support system that you're using, some sort of sponsor or something. How's that going?
No sponsor, no nothing.
Just cold turkey.
Cold turkey, man. I went to AA once or twice. I've been to AA multiple times in my life. I'm kind of like, I've tried this thing, but I'm like, I sit around the table and I'm like, am I really, I'm not one of these guys. Like, I'm not,
right.
I'm successful. Like, I have a business. I have my master's degree. I have an undergraduate degree. I have published research. Like, I'm successful. And so I went to another one here, and I'm located in Vegas. And the same thing. I was like, no, that's not me.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if it's not going to be you and you have a problem, you got to choose something. Either you're going to do this yourself and really hold that identity true to who you are. If that's not you, great. Show it. Prove it to yourself. If it is you and you need that support, then go. Mm-hmm. And so I went once, got a book, never read the book, and just have stayed sober since. It's been challenging for sure. And it's nice to know that it's both good to know and hard to know that it takes 2 years to finally get back to like normal functioning. Kind of.
Yeah.
I see it more now in like the way I think that, yes, it can be painful, but at the same time, there's such a clarity that comes with being more sober. And I think sometimes it's frustrating because I wonder, like, what was I doing for the last 10 years of just constant, drinking and drug use?
Yeah.
To now, like, really leaning into, and like, I'm reading more. I'm in, like, exercise science is my jam. That's my master's. That's kind of the whole place that I kind of live in. But like, I'm reading more about corporate finance and how do I run a business, and like reading more about exercise physiology, more research. And it feels good to get back to these places, not only where I can not just feel motivated to read them, but also where I can really understand them again. And I think that we forget how much dampening is going on inside of our brain whenever we're constantly abusing anything. Like, it can be, it can be a drug, it can be alcohol, it can be, I'm eating too many donuts or sugar or whatever.
Or social
right?
media, just
social
escaping
media
into that and that dopamine fix that's constant.
Yeah, it's been eye-opening and hard at times, and it definitely, like, sometimes I'm like, man, I really wish I could have a drink. I do have a lot of non-alcoholic cocktails in the house now. I've got all these, like, subscriptions, and I have, like, tequila that's not really tequila and all this stuff. And so it's still kind of fun, but it became such a part of my identity. Like, I went to parties and I was the guy who brought good cocktails. Like, you want to learn something about gin? Like, I'll tell you exactly where that gin is from, how it was made, the family that's behind it, where gin originally came from at the very beginning of history.
Yeah.
In this, like, I just became obsessed with the history, with the creation of cocktails themselves, and like Sazerac Hotel. Like, let's go to the Sazerac bar. Let's go there and like have a drink, because like, what an iconic place that's changed culture.
Yep.
So I think there's still very cool pieces of it. It's just, hey, maybe, it's not who you are. It's maybe something that you do. And if it's not something that you can do, you make it about who you are, maybe it's not for you.
Yeah, I know for me, it was very much a part of my identity. I had a different podcast that was largely about getting hammered and talking about all the ridiculous things that had happened since the last time I recorded, and usually because of too much drinking. And then I was a regular guest on a show that was all about tasting and talking about beer. And when I suddenly, had to tell both shows, like, hey, this isn't me anymore, I had to, and I'm still, I think, to some degree trying to figure out who I am now, right? Like, who is this person who is a complete 180 from who that person was? It's crazy, the things that we use to identify ourselves, even to ourselves. And I think maybe you're finding, or maybe you've known all along, that now this Ben, the one you found in the gym, is a different identity, and one that's maybe a little bit easier to live with.
I think that I think I had a transition even inside the gym where there's kind of a constant change where I went from the guy who was just trying to like get into a safe place and wanted to be better and like really have some self-improvement. I wasn't the strongest kid in the gym. If anything, I was probably one of the weakest people in the gym. And I kind of envied other people that like had the opportunity to like that could afford to be on the sports team, as the little league. We just didn't have the time for it. My parents didn't have the time for it. They didn't have the extra cash for it. And so I was envious to some degree, and I wanted to be really good at something. I wanted something to be mine. And it was almost where I made it so much mine that it was weird and lame. Like, we're not studying exercise physiology in high school. You're studying biology. And I'm over here talking about actin and myosin and how they work. And people are like, dude, you're fucking weird. So it was a coping mechanism to like take ownership of like a part of my own, like cut my own piece of the pie for myself. And then it became, I started competing for Team USA. So I ended up representing Team USA. As soon as I graduated high school, I went to Hungary. And I was able to compete on the international platform. And I was a powerlifter. And that was it. And then I retired in 2017, went to Worlds. I got a couple gold medals, and I was like, all right, I think I'm out of powerlifting for now. My significant other at the time was also in the world of powerlifting. She was a national level athlete, and she quit. And so I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm kind of be done. Maybe I'll come back to it in another time. And I didn't know who I was anymore. It went from this guy who wanted to cut a piece of his own pie to being very successful in this thing to now I've been a powerlifter to everybody. To myself, to everyone around me for a while now. Am I an athlete? Am I still a powerlifter? Am I a student? Like, who's Ben?
Yeah.
And then now, after that journey, then now I've realized I'm an exercise scientist. I'm a teacher. I'm an educator. And so what can I do? And what's inside my brain and the experiences that I've had in this space? How can I help other people as well? Kind of just understand fitness a little bit better, make it easier, because it's more complicated than I think people want to make it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yes, there's complex pieces to it, but if you want to apply it, like, there's do it.
Let's talk about that, because I know, like, I'm no power lifter. I'm a guy who I don't even necessarily have goals in the gym of, bro, I want to bench whatever. I go to the gym every day, literally because of what it does to my brain and allows me to live with myself a little better. Where I used to use alcohol to quiet those voices, now I find that, tired muscles quiet the dark voices. And that's why I'm lifting heavy things in the gym every day, or going for a long hike, or just doing something to get my brain out, get out of my own head, basically. And I think it took years of failure, of trying to go, giving up, not seeing results, all the same reasons everybody quits after a couple of weeks, before I finally found, like, wow, there's clarity in sticking with this. There's accomplishment and confidence that comes with, I did a hard thing today. Like, just these really basic things that are what get me in there every day. So to that guy who's, maybe a few years behind both of us, who's on the couch still using drugs or alcohol or whatever to deal with their pain, and they're thinking, like, I got to try something, and it seems to work for these guys, where do they start?
It's going to suck 1,000%.
Yeah.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's not going to feel good as that drink. It's not going to feel good as that drug immediately. On the long term, it'll be the best thing you've ever done with your life. So it can really be as simple as getting up and going outside. And it can be you literally just open the door, you walk outside, you look around, you get some sunlight, you walk back inside. Mm-hmm. It can start there.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. Right now, you're listening to this. Do 10 push-ups.
Yeah.
What the hell? Yeah. Like, even if they're shitty push-ups, who cares? Did you move?
Dude, they're probably 2 more than you did yesterday.
Exactly. Yeah. Do one at a time. Add one a day.
Yeah.
Anything. It can be that simple, where you don't need to, like, this idea that I'm going to bench this amount of weight is, sure, if you really want to be like a pretty hardcore gym rat, you can make these kind of goals. But like you're saying, like, your goal is, like, you do have a goal, and the goal is mental clarity and mental health, which it's a fantastic thing for. I'm reading about heat shock proteins right now, and how the heat shock protein will help unfold misfolded proteins in order to make them more functional. And then it also decreases the amount of aggregate proteins that are around. So then ultimately what's happening is it reduces your chance for Alzheimer's and dementia.
So let's put that, let's take that out of the lab and put that in my living room. What is heat shock therapy? What does that look like? How do I do that at home?
Yeah, the easiest way is a hit style workout. So let's say in every minute on the minute you can do, every 2 minutes on the minute you can do. You're sitting down right now, even just heating up your body a little bit will go a long way. So again, that 1 push-up at a time, those 5 push-ups at a time, that is creating these heat shock proteins inside of your body.
Gotcha.
And so you're just heating up. That's all it is. So going outside and going for a walk, boom, heat shock protein. Done. Improving your mental health immediately. It's not like, you might not feel it immediately, but long term, you're going to feel that for sure.
Yeah.
So that's probably the easiest way to, like, just get up and start moving around. Ask for help. That's also a beautiful way. Get a buddy, right? Like somebody who is in your community that maybe is working out pretty consistently or is also struggling. And you're like, bro, let's both go back to the other thing. I like to look up That's usually like my thought process. If somebody else is doing something better than me, then I'm going to find them. Just ask like, hey, do you mind if I just like shadow you at the gym for a day?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do anything. I can just go and show up. And
Yeah.
that's a win, you know?
Yeah. I've told this story before, but literally when I started what has now been the most consistent time in the gym, I started by, like, I live in a community where I walk to the gym. It's 5 minutes away, but I was like, just go and open the door. Like, you don't lift a thing. Just literally, like, the process of just going there. That's the hardest part of any workout you're going to do, is getting out your front door and in the front door of wherever you're going. And so I did that for like a few days. And then finally I was like, okay, this is stupid. I'm here. Just go lift something, spend 10 minutes, get on the treadmill, do something. And it was very much that one push up a day of like baby steps until, okay, now I need to ask somebody. I want to actually do something a little bit more useful and come up with a plan. And now I have a plan and I do that every day. It's just these baby steps. And I think people get really overwhelmed, especially if they are escaping into social media. And if their feed is anything about fitness, this is the only way to lift. And this is the only way to curl. And if you're not benching it this way, then you're just wasting your time. That may be true. You know the answer to that better than I do, but I know that for me, doing it badly every day is 100% better than the 0 I was doing before I started.
I think that's a factual statement. It depends on where you're at. Like, if you're going to expect yourself to walk into the gym and be one of these social media influencers, then you're going to come up losing every single time.
Yeah.
But remember where you're at. And when was the last time you went to the gym? Let's say it's been years, right? A lot of times it's been years since you've been in the gym. So then you do a shitty bench. You do a shitty curl. So what? Like, you're going to get better. Yep. And then you're going to get like, oh man, I kind of like internally, the addict will be like, I want to get better at this. Like, I hate being bad at this.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing some, like, especially early on, you're going to have newbie gains. Lean into those newbie gains. Mm-hmm. Like, appreciate them for as long as you can. Yeah. So you do 10 curls a day, you walk out of the gym, your biceps are going to get bigger. And that satisfaction alone can go so far.
Yeah. That, and for me, I try to really lean into how I feel when I'm done. Because some of it is like, it was hard and I did it. So the next time something seems like it's going to be hard, I'm building a body of evidence that says you can do hard things. It's the same reason I go in a cold lake a couple times a week. I literally, I love cold plunging because when I can sit in 2-degree, Celsius water for 20 minutes, the next time I'm like, I don't want to make this phone call. Like, really? Come on. Look what you can do. You can make this phone call. This is not that hard. And, you just start to convince yourself that you're capable of more than you thought you were.
I think we are all more capable than we think we are. And so doing those little things of, like, I'm going to wake up, like, let's say you're waking up at 8 a.m. a day, right? Like, and that's late for you, whatever late is for who you are, like 10 minutes earlier, 20 minutes earlier, 30 minutes earlier. And you just like walk it down a little bit. And by the time you know it, like you're waking up early enough to enjoy your morning for you. Maybe you can have journal time in the morning, or maybe you can, like, if you have the opportunity to go to a sauna, get a sauna in the morning, like go to the lake in the morning. Like, there's so much opportunity. You create your own luck is what I like to that I've heard before that I really like. And so ultimately at the end of the day, like, and then now all of a sudden you are looking better, you're feeling more confident. So next time you go to that meeting or that interview or whatever it is, you have all this built up momentum from weeks of like constant, small improvements to now somebody feels that, somebody recognizes that, and it penetrates not just them, but also like your life for the long-term development. It's massive.
Yeah. Well, you've now created a life where you're teaching others how to incorporate these things into their lives and live better, healthier lives. Where can we learn more about you, the great podcast that you do, and follow the work you're offering?
So Ben Thinking is the name of the podcast, Ben Thinking. And you can follow me on Instagram at Ben Nevares, Nevares on Instagram. And that's pretty much where I post all my stuff. And then my website for the business is iehealth.co. If you'd like to schedule a call, we can get on. We can start doing some programming. That's the jam, man.
Awesome, man. We'll have all those links in the show description for this episode. Ben, really fun conversation. The audience doesn't know. It was a bit of a surprise that we're doing this, but it turned out great. I'm so glad for this opportunity and grateful for this opportunity, and looking forward to staying in touch.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks, Ben. All right, my thanks to Ben Nevares. You can find his show, the Ben Thinking Podcast, and links to him in the show notes for this episode at thefitmenace.com. It's funny, all these little steps, doing the little things, topics that we're covering today, words, they're easy to say sometimes. Yesterday was one of those days where I'm using this new app to track my workouts and help me plan them. And I've been in the middle of a 8-week now, successfully pat myself on the back real quick. 9-week streak of hitting my workout goals every week. And yesterday was the deadline. If I didn't get something in yesterday, then I was going to break what would have been a 9-week streak. And so I, put it off all day, hemmed and hawed. When's the right time? What am I going to do? I don't want to do it. I'm tired. I hurt. I'm sore. I even hurt myself in the gym, the day before. So I was trying to figure out, what am I even going to do? I can't lift stuff. My shoulder hurts. But with this app that I'm using, I was able to kind of program a simple sort of brief workout that wasn't going to affect the injury that I received. And I was able to sneak it in literally while I was cooking dinner for my kids. I was in the kitchen and stir the soup a little bit, do 12 squats, stir the soup a little bit more, get down on the floor, do some Superman, raises and stuff like that. So I was doing just these body weight workouts. And the point isn't to again, not to brag, but the fact that I was able to do something helped me maintain the streak that I'm on to achieve the goal I'm trying to achieve. I'm on a goal. I'm on a quest. I'm on a journey to be in the best shape I've ever been when I turn 50, which is getting closer and closer, just a couple of years away. So part of that is just putting in 3 or 4, heavy workouts every week. And I've done it now 9 weeks in a row. I wouldn't be able to say that today if I hadn't said, who is the healthiest version of me? Who's the fittest version of me? Is he the one that's too tired to work out today? Or is he the one that's going to do what he can? Is he going to be the one that knows, what's the floor and what's the ceiling? What's the best I can do and what's the least I can do to still do something? It was not an incredible workout. Nobody's going to win any awards for what I put in last night, but I kept the streak alive and I did something and I got in a quick, 30-minute workout. So I say that again to just reiterate, you have to decide, who am I trying to become? What would that person do? And then do those things and do them every day as much as you possibly can. That's what it takes to get where you're trying to go. At least I hope so, because I'm still on that journey right along with you. So I hope this has been helpful. If it has, if you think somebody else could benefit from hearing this, please do share this episode with somebody who could benefit from it. You can do that with the links that are available at thefitmess.com, and that's where we'll be back in about a week with a brand new episode. Thanks so much for listening.
We know this podcast is amazing, and it doesn't seem to lack anything, but we need a legal disclaimer. Prior to implementing anything discussed in this podcast, it is your responsibility to conduct your own research and consult your physician. You should assume that Jeremy and Zach don't know what they're talking about, and they're not liable for any physical or emotional issues that occur directly or indirectly from listening to this podcast.